Hey guys and gals, real quick before the lesson starts, I want to let you know that throughout this lesson I talk a lot about addiction. And this is a tough thing for us to talk about, and it might be rather difficult for you to deal with because maybe you've experienced some type of addiction in your life through a family member, maybe even yourself. So I want you to keep in mind that when I say things like you or you might try or you might use, I don't mean you. I'm not particularly saying one individual that I'm talking to is going to use a substance or going to deal with this. What I mean is, in general, when teenagers experiment. All right. So as we get through this lesson, I'm not accusing you. I'm not suggesting anything, and I'm not trying to point my finger at you. All right. I'm saying in general, when teenagers experiment, this is a result that could potentially happen. All right. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Hey there, everyone. This is going to be a lesson on the addiction cycle. So, this is really the most important part of our addiction unit. We're not just talking about the just say no to drugs or why drugs are bad for you. We know drugs are bad for you. We know you should say no. We're going to have a refusal skill lesson on different ways you can say no so you're better prepared. But this is mainly why addiction is so scary. Not just the chemicals involved, but the behaviors involved with it as well. Because a lot of times we look at different drugs out there and we say, well, it's not addictive or there's no chemicals in there that are addictive. But behavior is addictive. The chemicals in your body are changed through your behavior. And so it's important that we better understand how this cycle works. Now, there's lots of different types of I guess if you look lessons up online for the addiction cycle, you'll find different variations. But I like this one the most in terms of teaching to the standard. And so we're going to go over these 6 steps. And this is really important for your addiction cycle project because it's going to be based on you demonstrating your understanding of these 6 parts of the addiction cycle. So the first one we have is short-term gratification. And this is the initial use of the drug. And by drugs, we're talking about alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, cocaine. We're talking about all drugs. We'll leave out caffeine, but yeah, considered a drug still. So first, is a short-term gratification. You feel good now. So let's say, for instance, you are stressed out. Maybe you're feeling down. Maybe you have these feelings that you're dealing with. And instead of doing stress reduction activities or mapping out your plan to success, how you're going to overcome these hard times or these difficult times, you just feel like you're down in the dumps and you're staying down there. And then a substance comes along. Maybe you drink. Maybe you try tobacco, and it makes you feel good. Well, your problems are still there, but just like a stress reduction activity, you engage in it, you participate in it, and at the end you feel better, and now you can go after your stress. Well, some people might use a substance to help them feel better now. And this is scary because we know that looking at your generation, it is an instant gratification generation. It wants things and it wants it now. It wants faster internet. You want instant results. That's why exercise and diet is something that's difficult to talk about because that takes time and hard work. You don't get it right away. You have to work for it. But if you smoke or do drugs, the feeling or the sensations or the chemical changes these drugs produce in your body make you feel good now. That's why they become scary at first because a young person, let's say 13, 14, because we know that if you start using drugs or alcohol at an early age, your odds of using it later are exponentially higher. Okay, so a young person who is experimenting, trying to figure out what they're doing with their life, who they are, because everyone says just be you, but we really don't know who that is until we experiment. Okay, so they experiment and they try different things, and maybe they are coerced, or maybe they willingly make the decision, a poor decision, to try a substance, and they like the way it feels. That doesn't mean they're addicted, but that short-term gratification is important because you assume it's good for you, a good behavior, because it feels good. Right? It's kind of natural. Does it feel good? Yes, then it's good. Does it feel bad? Then yes, then it's bad, right? But it feels good. And then there's long-term pain and dysfunction. This is the next thing. This is where the short-term gratification eventually becomes long-term pain and dysfunction. And there's physical pain and dysfunction from physical withdrawals. You stop using a drug, your body craves it because you're literally developing chemical receptors for this drug. And what happens is that you start to develop an inability to cope psychosocially without the drug. And that's a consequence of using this addictive chemical. With that, let's say you only, every time you're stressed out, you smoke something like weed, and it helps you relax and feel calm. Next time you're stressed, you smoke. Next time you're stressed, you smoke. What happens when you are stressed and you don't have weed? What happens if you don't develop proper and healthy coping mechanisms for this stress? You rely on a drug? You are reliant on it? You need it? similar to being addicted to it, developing into addiction. Okay, so there's the short term, it feels good now, and then there's long-term pain dysfunction where you continue use even though you know it's not good for you, and you know you're developing a habit. Now, at this point, a lot of people say the whole, I can quit whenever I want. I don't need it. I just like to use it. But that gets us into the third, and probably my opinion, as your educator, is the most important part of the addiction cycle, is addictive thinking. This is where we see obsession, compulsion, and denial and rationalization. I want to first talk about the obsession and compulsion. This is where someone needs to have this drug. Let's say you go out with friends and you want to have fun, you want to have a good time, and there's a friend who thinks fun and good time means drinking. You can't have fun unless you're drinking. You can't relax unless you're drinking. You can't have a good weekend where you get away from your work stress and all your problems by diving into a bottle. We're going to talk about pop culture's influence, and we're going to talk a lot about how music particularly says, hey, if you want to relax, have fun, and get away from life's problems, you got to get drunk. You got to get high. That's the only way to enjoy it with your friends, with yourself. That's a cultural influence. That develops this obsession and compulsion. Think about smoking, for instance, with tobacco. Nicotine, that craving. Someone gets super stressed out or their workload is too much. What do they want to do? They want to smoke. They're obsessed. They think they need it to help them with this problem. And then we start seeing denial and rationalization. Denial is, I don't have a problem. I can quit whenever I want. Weed's not a drug. It's not addictive. Or you can say, I only smoke when I drink. Joe Nichols writes a song about that. There's rationalization. I only smoke because I'm under a really stressful time right now. When I'm done with this stressful time, I won't need to smoke. Or I'm only doing it because it's college and it's what you do. After college, I don't plan on using drugs or drinking as much. That's rationalization. You blame other situations and people or problems for your drug use. And then what happens naturally in the body is we have stage 4, which is increased tolerance, where maybe someone who started drinking would take 2 to 3 beers before they were feeling drunk or buzzed or felt good from it. But after an extended use and using this alcohol or this drug for that time, a year later, 2 years later, they're going to need more of that substance to get that same feeling. So you might be taking a drug that gives you a certain feeling, and after a long time of taking it, you no longer receive that feeling unless you up your dosage of it, or you start searching for other drugs that give you that feeling because you've developed such a intolerance for this drug, which you see can be scary. That's where we start talking about gateway drugs. It might not be a terrible drug for your body. It might not be a terrible drug in terms of addiction, but it can lead to other drugs. Now, someone in the addictive cycle would say, they would rationalize saying, well, I'm not going to do other drugs. I'm not going to be that person. Remember, we need to keep in mind here from some of the videos, especially the Chris Christie video we talked about, or I shared with you, everyone is capable of becoming an addict. And I'll tell you something. One of the scariest things I've ever heard came from an addict that I know that I'm close to in my own life. And when they went through rehab, when they did their 12 steps, and they made their amends with me, which is a really tough thing, I said to them, how does it feel now that you're not addicted? And they said, I'm still addicted. I just have to fight it every day. I want you guys to think about that. Everyone who starts smoking, drinking, or doing drugs in their high school years, they don't start it thinking, I can't wait for this to control my life. I can't wait for this to ruin everything. I can't wait for my kids to hate me because of this. I can't wait for my spouse to leave me. I can't wait to lose my job. I can't wait to lose my license. I can't wait to lose my life because of the fun I'm having at 13 years old. It's called addiction, folks, and that's where we get into step 5. Stage 5 is loss of control. This is where the obsession and compulsion becomes too strong. Where you have compulsory usage, where you're bringing drugs or alcohol to school. Such a dangerous setting where you can get in so much trouble, but you need it that badly that you have to go and smoke at school, at work. Or maybe you can't control your drinking and you're drinking inappropriately, drinking and driving. Drinking to get drunk. Or you're using drugs to the point where you're spending your family's money. Your kids' groceries are going to your drug habit. That's loss of control. And that leads us into the biopsychosocial damage. This is where you use because you use. What I mean is if you had stress and that stress led you to do a drug or a substance or take it because you just couldn't handle the stress. And by stress, I'm not talking about just work or school, just everyday general stress, because we all know that stress is a part of our lives and it's something you can manage. You can handle, you can organize, you can tackle, you can attack. But you have the stress and you use a substance because country music told you got to drink beer on tailgate on Friday nights to be a man. So you're drinking, and then your drinking is causing more stress. You lost your job, your license, you're losing money to your alcohol, you're forming bad relationships with people who are not healthy and helping you. And so because you have this new stress, it's creating new problems, and the only way you know how to treat those problems is with drugs. So then you continue using drugs for the problems that drugs create, continuing the cycle of the addiction. That's the main points of the addiction cycle. We're going to talk about refusal skills and pop culture's influence in a couple of videos. I'm trying to keep these videos short to about 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm right at 10 minutes now. So if you have any questions, email me, and I'll send you some stuff about the Addiction Cycle project that you'll be working on. Thanks, guys.